In this video, we'll learn about torture. First, let's define it. Torture is defined as any act by which severe pain or suffering, whether physical or mental, is intentionally inflicted on a person for such purposes as obtaining from him or a third person information or a confession. It's punishing him for an act he or a third person has committed or is suspected of having committed, or intimidating or coercing him or a third person, or for any reason based on discrimination of any kind when such pain or suffering is inflicted by or at the instigation of or with the consent or acquiescence of a public official or other person acting in an official capacity. It does not include pain or suffering arising only from inherent in or incidental to lawful sanctions. Now let me give a quick overview of the Geneva Conventions. There's 4 of them. The first Geneva Convention for the amelioration of the condition of the wounded and sick in armed forces in the field. This is 1864. It defines the basis on which the rules of international law for the protection of the victims of armed conflicts. The second Geneva Convention for the amelioration of the condition of wounded, sick, and shipwrecked members of armed forces at sea, also 1864. The third Geneva Convention relative to the treatment of prisoners of war, this is 1906. And then the fourth Geneva Convention relative to the protection of civilian persons in time of war. This is after the Second World War, 1949. Now let's look at the common article of the Geneva Convention. This is important in the context of terrorism. Article 3 has been called a convention in miniature. It describes minimal protections which must be adhered to by all individuals within a signatory's territory during an armed conflict not of an international character. This is regardless of citizenship or lack thereof. Non-combatants, combatants who have laid down their arms, and combatants who are out of the fight, hors de combat, due to wounds, detention, or any other cause, shall in all circumstances be treated humanely, including prohibition of outrages upon personal dignity, in particular humiliating and degrading treatment. Article 3's protections exist even though no one is classified as a prisoner of war. Now here's some useful terms. Lawful combatant. A person who commits belligerent acts and when captured is treated as a POW. Unlawful enemy combatant. Someone who commits belligerent acts but does not qualify for POW status. Tribunal. Any person or institution with the authority to judge, adjudicate on, or determine claims or disputes, whether or not it is called a tribunal in its title. Rendition. Transfer of a person from one jurisdiction to another. Extraordinary rendition. This is the apprehension and extrajudicial transfer of a person from one state to another. It's called torture by proxy by some critics to describe situations in which the United States has purportedly transferred suspected terrorists to countries known to employ harsh interrogation techniques that may rise to the level of torture.